I need you to understand something before we go any further. Ikenna Nwachukwu was not a bad person who did bad things. That's not the story. If that were the story, I will not be telling it. Ikenna Nwachukwu was a brilliant boy, born with an unusual gift, and it almost seems like a problem for him. He could open anything, networks, locked systems, accounts that weren't his, and doors that others didn't even notice were closed. His university lecturers liked him a lot. He started there at 16, 2 years younger than his classmates, and if they were honest, they were a little afraid of him. He grew up in Surulere on the 3rd floor of a walk-up on a street that had been in need of repaving for 9 years. His mother, Chiamaka, was a senior nurse. She prayed at 4 in the morning and started cooking before sunrise. After her husband died, she raised 3 children, always working hard but never complaining about how difficult it was. His father, Pastor Obinna, died when Ikenna was 11, just like that, a Thursday morning in March. A stroke, 42 years old, gone. Here's something important. After Pastor Obinna died, Mama Chiamaka never moved the 4th chair from the dinner table. She placed his preaching Bible on the seat instead. Dark brown leather, cracked spine, his handwriting in the margins. That Bible stayed on the chair through Ikenna Secondary School, university, and everything else for 15 years. Are you thinking about that chair? Good. Don't let go of it. We are coming back to it. No one tells you, really no one, not the grief counselor or the well-meaning aunties, about the kind of hunger that comes when you lose your father young. It's not just sadness. It's the hunger of a boy who was supposed to learn something but never did. Ikenna was brilliant and he knew it, but it didn't matter because brilliance without someone to see it is just a sound in an empty room. He wanted to be seen. That's all. That's where this story really begins. He cracked the Wi-Fi password of the family upstairs on a Tuesday night in his 2nd year of senior secondary school. Just because he could. He used their connection for nearly a year. Then one night, he found a shared folder they had left open by accident. He opened it. Inside, screenshots of a long correspondence with a person who claimed to be an American soldier, bank statements, a photograph, a document titled in careful lowercase, "My love for him." He understood immediately what he was looking at. He closed the folder. He closed the laptop. He sat in the dark for a long time, and he thought about the man upstairs, a polite man, the kind who holds the lift door, who had been talking to a ghost for 2 years and had no idea. He thought about the ghost, thought about how clumsy it had been built. He went to sleep. He never opened the folder again. But here's the thing about open folders and about certain kinds of knowledge. You cannot unknow them. You can close the folder, walk away, even sleep. But once it's been opened, it stays with you. Some things, once you have seen them, never really leave you. His name was Ifeanyi Mbakwe, Big If. Ikenna found him on a hacking forum during his 1st year at university. Posted a question he had been stuck on for a week. Big If answered it in 30 seconds. 30 seconds. They met for jollof rice at a roadside spot near campus. Big If was in his final year. He was warm and easy to be around. The kind of person who made the room feel better when you were with him. He talked about the work, and he always called it the work. From the start. With the pride of someone describing something he had built himself, Ikenna listened. And I want you to understand what Ikenna felt in that moment because this is important. He has told me, and I believe him. It was not temptation. He did not sit across from Big If and feel pulled towards something forbidden. What he felt was recognition. He was 20 years old, and this was the first time in 9 years since the morning his father died that anyone had looked at something he was capable of, something specific and real, and said, "This is a gift, not a problem." He said, "You were made for this." Think about what that does to a hungry person, a genuinely hungry person. Think about what it means to finally be seen. Big E flat was small and damp. The generator ran almost all day. He had 3 monitors on a second-hand desk in Bagada. He showed Ikenna the work, which, when you take away all the other words for it, was really about building belief. You created a person, a life, a history made up of small, believable details added over weeks and months, until all those details felt more real to someone than their doubts. You built something, put it in front of someone who wanted it to be true, and then you waited. Ikenna's first job took 5 weeks to clear, 127,000 naira. He put it in a brown envelope and took it home on a Saturday morning. His mother held the envelope for a long time. Then she put it in the kitchen drawer beside his younger sister's unpaid school fees receipt. She did not ask where it came from. He did not tell her. He thinks, looking back, that she already knew. He thinks she put it in the drawer without speaking because she was not yet ready to say what needed to be said, and because the school fees were due in 10 days. By the time Ikenna was 21, the boys called him chairman. Can you imagine? Here's what that looked like. A 2-bedroom flat in Lekki Phase 1 with floor-to-ceiling glass and a view of Lagos skyline, the kind of view you have to earn. He had a new Mercedes-Benz S-Class, paid for in cash, 38 million naira in a brown envelope. He had a crew of 7, and the money, $40,000 in a week, sometimes more. He stopped converting to naira because he didn't want to compare it to anything anymore. On the surface, chairman, but underneath it all, he had lost 12 kilograms. He wasn't sleeping. He had stopped calling his mom on Sundays. In his Ikorodu flat, in the room he called the Dark Room, he had 3 monitors, a desk lamp, and a mirror he kept covered because of a rule he had promised to follow. He spent most nights there. And around his neck, on a black cord, was a small red coral bead. I need to tell you how that happened. Stay with me. His father's sister, Auntie Ifoma, who lived in Onitsha and had since her brother's death been keeping a different kind of company, drove down from Onitsha one Tuesday afternoon. She sat in his mother's kitchen and drank tea and said what she came to say with the particular patience of someone who has rehearsed it. Then she walked with Ikenna to the gate and pressed a folded paper into his hand and told him, "Memorize it and throw it away." He memorized it. He threw it away. 3 weeks later, he was on a flight to Asaba. A hired car took him on a 90-minute drive down a road he didn't recognize, though he had been on it once before. At 9 years old, his small hand in his father's larger one, he didn't know that he had no memory of the road. The compound sat 20 minutes outside his father's village. Wooden gates, red earth, an old man who looked at Ikenna in complete silence for 2 full minutes before asking him 3 questions. Ikenna has not told me what the 3 questions were. He has told me only that the 3rd was about his father, and that he lied, and that the old man knew he had lied, said nothing, and continued. The bead was small. It weighed almost nothing. He felt nothing when it was placed in his hand. He put it on in the car on his way back. He wore it for 19 months without taking it off once. Now here's what I need you to know, and what Ikenna did not know until much later. The old man's compound, the red earth, the wooden gates, sat on the exact same ground where his father had once knelt beside a dying man's bamboo bed and prayed. His father had been on this ground. His father had prayed on this ground. The compound had since been sold to someone new, and what was once a prayer ground has become something entirely different. Ikenna walked through the same gate his father had walked through. He knelt on the same earth where his father had knelt. He did not know. He could not have known. But the ground knew. Here is what protection costs. Let me be specific. The work went very well in the months after he got the bead. Ikenna thought the bead was the reason. Now he believes he was wrong. That the work went well because he was exceptionally talented and had always been. But when a young man stops being afraid, he often seeks the simplest explanation. Then Big If called on a Tuesday. Chinedu Okeke, 22, from Aba. He had been at the table the night Ikenna was toasted. He had a son, a boy living with his mother in Ahoda, small enough to still leave a toy car on a kitchen floor without meaning to. Cardiac arrest, Sunday morning. Course, undetermined. He had been athletic. He did not drink. He had received his own bead from a different man 6 months before he died. 2 days after Chinedu's body was released, Ikenna went to Ajegunle in a plain black shirt on a danfo. He carried a thick envelope. I want you to picture the parlor, the one villain's furniture, the framed photograph of Chinedu at his secondary school graduation, mortarboard and gown, and the white smile of a boy who believed he was at the beginning of something. The child's plastic toy car was on the floor, left exactly where it had been left. The 2 sheets of paper on the kitchen table, the official mug receipt, and a second sheet, handwritten, passed to her in the chaos of the paperwork that she had read twice and couldn't bring herself to read a third time. Chinedu's mother had not spoken to anyone in 3 days. She sat at the table in a black wrapper, and she was the stillest person Ikenna had ever been in a room with. He set the envelope down. He said he was sorry. He said the money was for the boy's burial, for whatever she needed. She did not look at the envelope. She did not look at him. After a long moment, a very long moment, she nodded. Barely, one small movement in the direction of the envelope. That was all. That was the only acknowledgement he received. He stood to leave, and then, this is the important part, he raised his hand towards her shoulder, wanting to offer comfort, to show he was there. His hand stopped 3 centimeters above her shoulder, and he held it there. He did not put it down. He withdrew it and walked away. He has told me since that the hovering hand was the most honest thing he did in those years. The gesture of a man who understood, in the very moments before he made it, that the comfort he wanted to give was not actually for her, that it was for him, that her shoulder was not his to touch. He withdrew his hand. He walked out. 2 weeks later, she died. Stroke, 52 years old, 24 days without speaking. Ikenna sent a second envelope for the burial. It came back unopened. He has told me he believes she had arranged that before she went, that the boys in the work would not receive her words and would not be made to feel forgiven by their money. He put the returned envelope in a drawer. He went back to work. I want to talk about Ogechi. She was 11 years old, Ike's youngest sister. She had been 6 when their father died, so her wound was different, softer, the kind a child has when her father is just a blur in her memory. She loved her brother the way younger siblings love the older ones who carried them, without conditions or questions. One Saturday afternoon, she was alone in Ike's old bedroom at the Surulere flat. He was in the kitchen with their mother, and she reached into his travel bag, not out of mischief, not out of suspicion, just out of the casual curiosity of an 11-year-old who thinks there might be a gift in there. And her fingers found a small dark green velvet drawstring pouch. She opened it. Inside it was a small red bead. She held it in her open palm. She turned it in the afternoon light from the window. She thought it was the most beautiful thing she had ever seen. When Ikenna walked in and found her there, his 11-year-old sister, holding the bead in her open palm, completely delighted. Here is what he did. He sat down on the floor beside her, crossed legs, calm. He smiled at her, and the smile was warm, genuinely warm. He has told me that, and I believed him. He was not coldly calculating. The warmth was real. He told her it was from an artist friend, that it was for a sister of that friend, that maybe one day he will ask the artist to make one just for her. She said yes please, and then she remembered mommy had said dinner was at 6 and she made egusi, and she left the room light on her feet, already thinking about something else entirely. He sat alone on the floor of the room where he had wept at 11 years old in his father's chair. He has said that of everything he did in those years, and he did a lot, the lie to Ogechi is one he still hasn't finished repenting for. He didn't take money from her. He took away her right not to know, her right to be 11 in her brother's room without being pulled unknowingly into a story she never chose. A few weeks after that Saturday, he showed his mother a property listing on his phone, a 3-bedroom flat in Magodo, marble lobby, a lift. He had been thinking about buying it for almost a year. This was supposed to be the why, the reason a man stays in the work past the point where he needs to. This was how you gave back. His mother looked at the screen. She did not pick up the phone. She turned it face down and slid it back across the table to him. Then she said, quietly, with the absolute certainty of someone who has already made this decision and is now simply announcing it, I will not live in a house I cannot pray in. She went back to the stove. He sat at the table with the phone face down and his tea growing cold. He had nothing to say because in 10 words, she had finally named what had been between them for months. She had drawn a line. After that, he still came home for Christmas, Easter, and Ogechi's 12th birthday. She fed him, prayed before meals, but never prayed for him out loud. He has said he could feel her praying for him through the wall at 4 in the morning, every day for 7 months. He didn't know it then. I need to tell you about Chidera. She was a medical student from Owerri. Heart-shaped face, large dark eyes, the particular steadiness of someone who has decided to be a doctor and mindset. She had been with Ikenna for 2 years when she found the wig on a shelf above the spice rack in the kitchen of the Lekki flat. Dark brown, long, red highlights, not hers. She held it up. She carefully put it on the counter as if it were evidence in a trial, which in a sense it was. But here is what I need you to understand right now. The wig is not why she left. She will tell you this herself if you listen carefully. The wig is just the thing that happened to be in her hand on the day the living finally came. Because Chidera had known for almost a year, she knew about the work, the second flat, the bead under his shirt, and the trip to the village. Every morning, she chose to push what she knew to the back of her mind because she loved him and kept telling herself a story every day for a year about the man he might become once he changed. She had been doing that for a year. And when Ikenna walked into the kitchen and saw her with the wig, she looked at him the way a person looks at you when they have been preparing for this conversation for a long time. She told him everything she knew. She told him the wig was not the reason. She told him that the reason had been building for 12 months and that today it had simply arrived. Later, suitcase packed, small and brown, sitting in the bedroom doorway, she stopped in front of him and she pressed her open palm flat against his chest. Not tenderness, not a goodbye. Urgency. The urgency of someone who is trying to reach something through a surface, through a shirt, through a cord, through 19 months of choosing, trying to reach the man underneath all of it before she runs out of time. The bead was right there under her hand. She told him it was going to kill him, not as a spiritual warning, but as a diagnosis. She was a doctor in training who had watched him lose 12 kilograms, seen his hand shake at breakfast and looked at him every morning for 16 months, seeing a man being eaten up from the inside. She said it clearly, the way you tell someone a medical truth they need to hear even if they are not ready. And then, right at the end, from somewhere beneath all that control and preparation, something cracked. Please, please, take it off. Please, please. 4 words. She took her hand from his chest. She walked to the front door. She did not look back. She opened the door and closed it. Click. He threw the deadbolt. He went and sat on the edge of the bed in the empty room. He sat there for what he had told me were hours, waiting for something he could not name. Nothing came. "18 months. 18 months went by. During that time, the work went well, but his hands shook. He couldn't sleep. He barely ate. And he went to the village 3 more times. Somewhere in those months, he can't say exactly when he started to feel afraid. Not afraid of the EFCC, not afraid of the boys or the seniors or the men who sometimes sent messages that arrived at 3 in the morning and did not require a reply. Afraid of something else, something he had agreed to and was no longer sure he understood. On a Wednesday evening in October 2022, he drove to the Ikorodu flat. He crossed the compound without saying goodnight to the night guard, a Hausa man named Suli, from a village outside Sokoto, who had been watching Tenant 4B for 3 weeks and had noticed something he could not quite put language to. That night, Sule decided, without telling himself he was deciding anything, not to read his paperback. He was going to sit on his stool. He was going to listen. Inside the dark room, Ikenna sat on the floor with his back against the desk, and he prayed for the first time in 3 years. He has said he doesn't remember the words. He prayed in the language he learned at 15 in his father's church tongue, a language that goes beyond thought, and he thinks he prayed for about 20 minutes. At some point, he couldn't tell if he was the one praying anymore. It was 11:47 p.m. Something inside the flat hit the floor hard. I want you to meet Sule properly. He is in his early 30s now. He still works the same night shift as the same compound in Ikorodu. He has been there for 5 years. He has thought about that night, the night of the 11th of October into the 12th, 2022. Every single day since it happened, he has agreed to let me record what he witnessed, on one condition, that I do not include anything he believes he heard but cannot be certain of. I agreed. He heard the third at 11:47 p.m. because he happens to be looking at his watch. He checked every hour. It is a habit, a discipline. He heard something heavy hit the floor inside the building. He stood up. He walked towards the compound gate. He did not open it. He did not call for help. He stood there and then he sat back down. Why didn't he call for help? He asked himself that question for 3 years. He does not have an answer that satisfies him. I believe him. At 1:14 a.m., he heard the scream. Let me be clear. Sule has heard men scream before, in Sokoto as a boy and in Lagos during the 5 years of the night shifts. He knows what a scream sounds like. He knows the different kind. He has a whole library of them in his mind. The scream from the flat that night was not in his library. He stood up again. He walked to the gate. He did not open it. He sat back down again. Between 1:14 a.m. and 3:21 a.m., there was silence. The generator went quiet. The flat went dark. No light under the corridor door. No sound, just the Lagos night and Sule on his stool and the fluorescent tube buzzing above his head. And then at 3:21 a.m., he heard the singing. Now, I want you to hear Sule's own words because he chose them carefully. He told me, when a man sings, his voice has a shape. Even if you don't know him well, you recognize it. He said the voice that night wasn't Tenant B's, or sometimes it was. He can't say for sure. He isn't saying it wasn't him. He just couldn't tell. He chose the word singing. He told me it is the closest word he has, but that it is not quite right. He prayed then, the prayer his grandmother taught him in Hausa when he was very small. When I asked him to tell me the prayer, he wouldn't. He said it was his grandmother's prayer and that he had always belonged to her and that he had borrowed it that night. He wasn't willing to loan it out again. Now, I need to take you somewhere else. I need to take you back 3 years in time across the city to a flat in Surulere. It is 4 a.m. 2019. A woman in a faded blue cotton nightgown, her hair in plain braids, no hair tie, is kneeling on the floor in her son's empty bedroom. He hasn't called in 3 weeks. She doesn't know where he is. She pressed her hands flat against his empty mattress. Then she pressed her forehead against it. She prayed with the steady confidence of someone who has talked to God for 20 years and isn't going to stop just because things have gotten harder. She says, I do not care what it costs me. If it must cost me, bring him back. However long it takes, whatever it costs. Then she gets up at 6, makes tea and goes to work, and prays the same prayer every night. At 4 in the morning, in the dark, beside the empty bed, for 3 more years. Sule, who will not meet this woman for another 2 years, who doesn't know her name, who has no idea she exists, heard the singing stop at 4 in the morning. Think about that. At 6:45 a.m., Sule heard a friend's voice from inside the flat, asking for water. He walked to the corridor door for the 3rd time that night, and this time he knocked. He has told me he doesn't know why he knocked then, and not any of the other times. He doesn't have an explanation. He just knocked. He opened the door. He told me what he saw and what he refuses to describe. When he reached that part of the story, his face changed, the look of someone who has come to the very edge of what words can express and who isn't upset about it, just clear about what that edge is. He helped Ikenna drink water. He helped him across the compound. He put him in the Benz and drove carefully using a map app because the man in the passenger seat had fallen asleep before they reached the end of the street. And Sule was afraid that if he braked too hard, the man might not wake up. On a coal bridge, Ikenna opened his eyes. He looked at Sule in the driver's seat of his own car. He said one thing, "Thank you for staying at the gate." And then he closed his eyes again. Mama Chiamaka was at the front gate of the Surulere flat in her nurse uniform. Sule had called her an hour earlier. She saw her son in the passenger seat of his own car, unable to drive himself, brought home by a stranger, and her face changed. You know that look, the look of someone who has just received news they didn't realize they had been waiting for. She helped him out. She turned to Sule, this young man she had never met, in his security uniform, still holding the water bottle, and she said, "Thank you, my son. Bless you." Then she walked her son through the gate and into the flat. He slept for 16 hours. The next morning, she made yam and stew and set them before him. Watching him eat, she didn't ask a single question. Not where he had been, not who the Hausa man with the water bottle was, not what happened in Lagos that brought her son home like this. She just sat and watched him eat for 7 minutes. He even joked to me. 2 minutes of screen time, and smiled, and she stayed silent. Then he put down the fork, bowed his head, and wept. He cried the same way he had once before at 11 years old, sitting in his father's chair with his hand flat on the wood. Same posture, same boy, 12 years later. When he lifted his head, he reached into his pocket and he placed the bead on the kitchen table between them, the red coral bead, the things that had been on his neck for 19 months, on the table now between a mother and her son. She looked at the bead, she looked at him, and she said, in the quietest, most even, most certain voice you have ever heard anyone use, not triumphant, not relieved, simply present, she said, "Ikenna, eat your food. We will pray after." She went back to the stove. She did not touch the bead. 3 days later, Ikenna walked to Bariga. Left pocket, the bead in a small white envelope. Right pocket, a black USB drive containing every record from 6 years of work. 73 unresolved names, every format, every account, every transaction. He carried all of it in 2 pockets to a small Pentecostal assembly, sat down at a folding table at the back of the empty auditorium and placed both objects in front of a former banker named Pastor Emeka Obi. Pastor Emeka looked at the bead in its envelope. He looked at the USB drive. He sat with both of them for a long moment, not rushed, not performing patience, just genuinely patient, the way a man is patient when he has made it a policy. Then he reached across the table. He picked up the USB drive, not the bead, the drive. He stood up. He said, "We will start with the drive." "73 names. That's what was on the drive. 73 people, 73 amounts, and 73 small notes in Ikenna's handwriting. American widow, phonics, 36K, mother of 1, ongoing. That by October 2022, read as the record of a life he wasn't sure had really happened to him. They started on a Friday, And then what followed was not a dramatic transformation. It was not a moment. It was not a testimony he could deliver on a stage with a smile and a before and after. It was Tuesday. He sold the Benz in the 3rd week. 2 months later, he sold the Lekki flat. He moved back into his old bedroom in the Surulere flat for the first time in 7 years. He took a junior developer job at a small studio in Yaba for 85,000 naira a month. He sent anonymous money orders from a Western Union in Surulere to zip codes in Arizona and Georgia. He went to the Wednesday Bible study in Bariga. He worked with an EFCC inspector named Adeyemi, who had left a card on the kitchen counter and waited 18 months for the right moment. 18 months, made of Tuesdays. Now, on the morning of his wedding, before the ceremony, before Chichi arrived, before any of it, Pastor Emeka asked him to come to the church early. He and an older deacon named Brother Chooks, who carried a small garden spade, with the matter-of-fact air of a man carrying any other tool, walked Ikenna around the side of the church to a small patch of red earth between the back wall and the low concrete fence. The ground was soft. Last night's rain. Brother Chooks had already dug a small hole. Ikenna held the bead in his open palm. He held it for 11 seconds. He said he felt nothing. He had expected to feel something, a bit of resistance, a small struggle, some sign from his body about what he was about to let go. But he felt nothing. He just held the bead. The bead was a bead. He knelt in the red earth in his white agbada, and he placed the bead in the hole. Brother Chooks filled it with 6 small spadefuls and pressed it flat. Pastor Emeka prayed briefly in Igbo, returning to the earth what belongs to the earth, letting it grow other seeds. Then the 3 men walked back into the church. The red earth looked just like any other ground. In the rainy season, water would pool over it. In the dry season, it would crack like everything else. You had never known. There is no marker, nothing to find. Good. Six months after that morning, Ikenna and Chidera Okafor were married at the church in Bariga. 19 people. Mama Chiamaka baked the cake herself. Ogechi, 15 by then, already studying medicine in her notebooks, read from the Gospel of John. 3 months after the wedding, he drove to Nnewi with his wife and walked up the hill to his father's grave. First time in 15 years, he carried the preaching Bible. Dark brown leather, cracked spine, Pastor Obinna's handwriting in the margins. He stayed for almost 2 hours. He read the passage his father had marked most heavily. He has not told me what he said up there. He has not told his wife. I have not asked. There are doors a man walks through alone, and what he finds behind them is his to keep. Ikenna Nwachukwu is 26. He lives in Yaba and visits his mother every Saturday. He runs a small company, Finok for Startup, building compliance tools for early-stage African fintechs. He is not a unicorn, not impressive by Lagos venture capital standards. He could have earned his current salary in a weekend during his old life. Now, his real name is on the company. He goes to a small Pentecostal church in Bariga on Sundays. He doesn't preach. He doesn't testify on stage and doesn't have 10,000 subscribers. He has everything he once asked for. That's the part that's hardest to explain to people who expect a different ending. Now, one more thing, the last thing. A few months after the wedding, he asked a clockmaker to come to the Surulere flat. His father's clock, a small mid-century mantle clock on the wall unit in the parlor. Dark mahogany case, brass pendulum behind the glass, silent since the morning of Pastor Obinna's death, had not ticked in 15 years. The clockmaker replaced 3 parts, oiled 4 others, and said the clock had been a good clock once and would be again. Ikenna wound it with the small key at the front of the case. He stepped back. 1 full second of silence. Then the brass pendulum trembled and swung left and swung right, and the clock began to tick. Mama Chiamaka was on the green velour couch with her Bible open in her lap. She was not reading, she was listening. She listened to the clock tick for a moment. She did not look up, she did not cry, she did not say a prayer of thanksgiving or call for Ikenna or make any kind of occasion out of it. She said, barely, almost off-handedly, the way she would say, the kettle is ready. There it is. And she went back to reading. There it is. The water that swallowed the elephant does not swallow it twice. Mmiri riri enyi adịghị eri ya ọzọ.